are live. Got an audio with it, so check it out.
Breaker 19, Breaker 19.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to be eating and not around, so you just yap at him. And he can yap back.
Anyhow,
Long day.
it's been a bit of a busy week. There's been a lot of things with Eva and medical stuff. Today, they put in what they call a port, which is a device in the upper chest that allows them to stick a needle through your skin into the device and push stuff into your vena cava so that when you're dealing with what he's going to be dealing with, where there's lots of injections, lots of pokes and this and that and the other, it's a spot where they can do it without a problem. And so they did that today. Seemed to go smoothly. It doesn't seem to be in any discomfort. It's just underneath the skin and stuff. They do it with ultrasound and X-rays that they place. So that all went smoothly. And then this afternoon, we went in for, I'd call it a briefing from the cancer people there, what they're going to be doing on the infusion side of the whole equation. And seemed to be a nice lady and everything. So
I get breakfast at massage chair.
they have heated massage chairs and they will have breakfast too.
Breakfast.
So you get food. Anyhow, she will start her it, uh, monoclonal antibodies. There'll be one, cetuximab. It'll start Monday. She'll get a dose, and the following Monday she'll get a dose, and then radiation. And so every week on the Monday she'll get the dose of the cetuximab, and then the rest of the week she'll just have the radiation. So she'll have 5 days of radiation, one infusion per week. And we'll see how it all goes. This particular medication, it's not a standard chemotherapy type drug. It usually doesn't cause way of nausea or anything like that, hair loss. It can cause what are they called? More like an acne type rash. That it basically it cranks up your immune system and targets a particular antibody on the cancer. So not like they're trying to kill the cancer so much, trying to target cancer. Hey, Chain Monska. So that's kept us pretty busy time to time. Last Saturday we went to Butte to the reptile show there. Dave noticed it when he was, because he lives really close to the Civic Center there. He noticed the advertiser, called me week and a half ago, something like that. Let us know. Eva wanted to go over there. She wanted isopods and springtails. These are small arthropods that clean fungus and stuff out of the substrate in the terrarium that Monty hangs out in. Because he's a python, he needs a fairly high humidity to thrive. and that means that the substrate has to be pretty darn moist, which tends to create mold and stuff like this, which aren't that great for the python. And so these create kind of an ecosystem where they'll knock that down. You also notice that, believe it or not, by the way, isopods are essentially pill bugs. If you know what it's something called a pill bug. And apparently they have, believe it or not, fancy isopods
that are pets that people raise and like crawl on them and stuff. Bizarre.
And so
these things cost a couple of bucks a piece.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Pretty ridiculous. But anyhow,
we're in the wrong business, people.
So in the long run, she may wind up raising isopods. We got the cheap ones, but they're busy.
I mean, no shit. There I was. There were isopods there that cost $3 each.
That's some pretty expensive pill bugs, man. So anyhow, that went fine. We had a nice lunch with Dave. Thank you, Dave. Had a good visit. Talked about some stuff, and we came back to town. Dropped off the stuff. Yeah, and then Eva wanted to go to the pet store here to get some more food for Monty, and we were at the light waiting to get across Montana at Custer, and the engine started running really crappy. Wouldn't throttle up. Fuel pump went out. Luckily, I was able to idle across the intersection, and then
a cop helped us.
Then a police officer showed up, and he pushed us off into the parking lot. So,
I don't know that, Gene, but
he knows what kinds of substrates are
we're
desirable.
already using a lower mold substrate. The biggest thing about snakes is ball pythons only have one lung. So it's like I want to try to keep, we want to try to keep them a healthy environment.
Yep. But anyhow, so the fuel pump went out on the minivan, parked in a parking lot right now. I have one free tow on my insurance. The plan today was to figure out where we're going to get it fixed. Unfortunately, when we took Eva in to get the port, they were running behind and stuff, and so we spent all our time doing medical stuff today. So we'll figure it out tomorrow. Have a friend, talk to him, basically asking him,
hi David,
if he knew a good mechanic, because Lauren is up on a mountain doing what he has to do right now before winter. So otherwise we just go over to his place and we could probably get it fixed in a couple hours, no problem. The pump itself isn't terribly expensive, about $50. But my friend said, he'll take a look on the internet and see, we might just do it ourselves, basically. Apparently all I got to do is jack the car up a bit and loosen up the gas tank and lower it a couple inches. And that'll get you enough room to slide it out. It's up on the corner.
And our local movie theater is showing Back to the Future for the 40th anniversary of Back to the Future.
Which is kind of scary.
Yeah, kind of scary. But beyond that, we have a lot of gold mining stuff to talk about. Do you want me to get to the whiteboard?
I was going, not that much. I'm not really showing anything. When it comes to the gold mining stuff, again, primarily this week was research directly related to the Central America project. And still haven't gotten back the solution assays I've taken to them over the last week. Hopefully we'll get those back in a day or two. But anyhow, so trying to think of experiments I could do that were useful. One thing I thought was, why don't I try and start researching how much of the various reagents we need to effectively recover the gold out of the sulfides. So I set up a series of tests. I had 3 bottle rolls, one with the amount of hydrogen peroxide I'd used before successfully, and I cut the no, on that one I didn't. I used the same amount of Eco Goldex. Then the next one I cut the hydrogen peroxide in half, and then the next one I cut the amount of hydrogen peroxide in half again. And I did a pre-treatment first, then I added the Eco Goldex. I have some hydrogen peroxide test strips, so I was able to, keep an eye on things a little bit at least. Those samples are at the lab. It looked like the half amount of hydrogen peroxide was reasonable, and the amount of Eco Goldex titrated from solution, if when I first started I had 30 cc's of titrant needed, at the end of the test I needed 25 cc's, so I only used 1/6 of the Eco Goldex. So I thought, well, let's try a similar thing with the half dosage of hydrogen peroxide and 1/3 the Eco Goldex, because that way I could use half of it up and I'd still have half of it left, which according to the titration seemed to be what happened. The spot tests are showing a lot less stuff, but I'm not sure what the stuff is. Is that gold? Is it other stuff? Combination of both? I don't know. Ran those tests, got the samples, got them to the lab today. So I got another 5 samples that'll be processed as soon as he gets to them, which will probably be tomorrow or the day after. So anyhow, got a lot of tests accomplished without a whole lot of results to show for it. And last week I also did a lot of fire assays, and the primary thing I was doing last week was figuring out what parameters mess up the fire assay. And we just got home a short time ago, all this medical. Okay. The previous research had shown clearly that drying at any temperature above room temperature, I mean, as low as 140 degrees Fahrenheit, was enough to lose significant amounts of gold. Okay?
Yep, we got plenty of sphagnum in there. We definitely have. As a matter of fact, he's currently in what we call a hobbit hide. It's one of his moss hides that's full of sphagnum.
But anyhow, so we knew that you could lose gold during the drying process. The question is, during the ashing process, how much gold do you lose and where? So I brought it up to 600 degree centigrade ashing temperature. Oh, and by the way, the reason I use centigrade on the furnace and stuff is because that's all the furnace does.
Yeah, like evaporated.
Yeah, exactly. Like evaporated.
It's ridiculous.
If you take, I'm going to give me my clipboard down there, little one. Fire assay. We originally fire assayed wet resin, dried resin, stuff like that. And if we dried it at 70 degrees Fahrenheit, we got the same result as with directly wet resin. Yeah, exactly, Chain Monska. It's wild, but it's in these complexes, and they're kind of volatile, believe it or not.
Yeah, it's in the pyrites.
No, it's not the pyrites. It's cyanides stuff.
Yeah.
But anyhow, at 140 degrees Fahrenheit drying temperature, the bead was 44% smaller. Okay? 44% loss. At 250 degrees, it was 60% smaller. And at 400 degrees, 57%, which in my opinion is within the margin of error. You know? So, it's pretty well. Now, it seemed pretty insane, but Chris Georgie found me a report from the Bureau of Mines that they had made an artificial gold ore out of silica sand and gold chloride. Okay? When they smelted it, because they knew it had, they knew the amount of gold because they put it there, they lost about 5% when they just used the silica and gold chloride. On the other hand, if they threw in some iron pyrite, which is not unusual to find with your gold, they lost up to 95% of the gold vaporized.
And we were talking to somebody locally who said around here it's routine to lose like 25%.
I think that was gentleman over there in Spokane.
Yeah.
Dan Garland.
Yeah.
But anyhow, can you recover gold in gaseous form? Yes, you'll need scrubbers and some other stuff. It's not that easy. It gets complicated. Okay? It can be done if you were doing this on a production scale. Say you were getting old resin or old carbon from mines that use carbon or resin, then you could set up an ashing process where you do put scrubbers on them. I was doing it primarily because I want to be able to fire assay resin and know how much gold is in it within a reasonable number. So anyhow, the first rule when fire assaying resin, dry it at room temperature. Okay? And hey Brian. So hey Asakura. So that's the first thing. If you're gonna fire assay resin, you gotta dry it at room temperature. Number two, or at least this resin that we have that we can do this with is the Max Water 104133 loaded with gold from the mill out here, which is lixivated with Eco Gold X solution. Doesn't necessarily apply to anything else. Simply don't know. I would assume it does until proven otherwise. But anyhow, so you got the dry resin. If you mix that with your flux and then smelt it, the flux gets sticky and thick, and the resin beads, you can see them glowing in the flux, and when they hit the top, they go poof into vapor. They flash, oxidize, and stuff like that. It's just a real pain. So the question was, can we ash it first? Let's get rid of all those hydrocarbons and carbon and stuff. Let's get rid of everything we can first. So an ashing temperature we had found from before was 600 degrees centigrade. I don't know what she said it was Fahrenheit, but I did the conversion. Anyhow, so I took a couple of samples, took them up to 600 degrees centigrade relatively slowly. At around 300 degrees centigrade, I noticed it was smoking bad and starting to flame. So I shut down the heating element, let it cool off a little bit, and then brought it up manually very, very slowly. Okay? And therefore, I was able to get it up to 600 degrees from that point with only smoke. Okay. They don't get dissolved. The the resin itself breaks down and oxidizes. Um, and so it's kind of a messy process when you're doing it in the smelt. This is why we're trying to ash it.
Yeah, doing it in the smelt, it causes all kinds of issues.
Yeah.
Just don't.
So I got it up to 600. As soon as it got up to 600, now at this point, you see a bed of resin beads that are glowing. You blow on them, they glow more. So it's clearly they're oxidizing. You know, they're burning. But it's a very, very surface effect sort of burning. You're not getting fire and smoke or anything like that. And as soon as it got to 600, I took one of the samples out, left the other one in for 30 minutes, and let it really cook for a while. Took it out, smelted them together. Smelted them each one separately, and there wasn't a whole lot of difference. They were essentially the same stuff. Okay, within my ability to measure. The next sample I took, this furnace is now at 600 degrees. I just took that sample, put it in there, and let her go. Fire and smoke as much as you want. When I tested that sample, it had about 10% less gold in it than the previous one. Then I took another 2 samples and spent hours, 3 hours, slowly ramping up the temperature in the kiln, and was able to get them all the way to 600 degrees with only one little tiny smoking incident. The rest of the time, they didn't even smoke. So I figured, okay, that's as gentle as it can be done. And at that point, I took one, roasted it for a little bit at 600, took it out. The other one I roasted for like an hour at 600 degrees, stirred it, kept putting it back in until it didn't, glow anymore. Took it back out. Call it an additional 10 or 15 minutes of stirring and putting back in. So again, now what I've done is I got one sample as slowly as humanly possible, as gently as physically possible up to the resin breakdown temperature where it's starting to actually burn the carbon. The other one, I took it up to that temperature and then cooked the heck out of it. Both of them. All of these that are cooked well, the slag works fine. You fire assay it, it's basically a litharge flux. The flux is nice and fluid. There's no little sparks floating around, things like that. Works fine. But that last serious cook seemed to lose a couple of percentage points. 3 or 4% of the gold. So it seems to me that the simplest way to do this is just bring it up to 600 degrees from the dry as quick as you want, smelt it, and then add 10 to 15%. Say, okay, I lost 10 to 15%, but since I know I lost 10 to 15%, and this is just a number, I can do that. Obviously, you wouldn't want to lose 10 or 15% if you're smelting for production. These beads that I'm getting are 1/10 of a gram. Okay. I was doing 10 grams of resin would give me about 1/10 of a gram of gold. Okay. And I have done it before where the gold was loaded much higher than, but this is what I've got right now. So once I get solution samples back, there are resin samples wherein I loaded fresh resin from the factory with solution, and bottle rolled for 24 hours, took it out and smelled it. I now know the size of the bead. I know how much gold I recovered from fire assaying the resin. Once I get the actual solution assays, I can ascertain how much gold was absorbed by the resin and see how that compares to the assays. For all I know, I'm losing half of it and not being able to tell because it's always very consistent. Okay. You know, but it can be, uh, I haven't really tried dissolving them with a solvent, honey bunny, although that's not a bad idea. Could you get my yellow paper over there and just write dissolve resin beads with acetone?
If,
I can do that test. That's not a bad idea. Not. I don't believe I'm losing much in the way of fines at all.
Hello, Jean-Francois.
Hello, Jean-Francois. But anyhow, yes, that is true, Gene. That's why I think the fire and smoke thing, I think that's what's happening is you're losing. Smoke is particulates, you know, and I think that's what's happening, that those are being carried away. Okay. But let's say once I get solution samples back, I can say with a high degree of confidence and a fairly small error how much gold was in that resin before I fired acid. Okay. And that'll give me a much better idea what the overall losses are. And then I'll be able to say, okay, this process seems to work within these parameters. Right now, I don't know. Yeah, dude, checking to see if I can actually dissolve the resin. That's a fun idea. I like that. Because if you could actually dissolve the resin beads,
and you had rich
it would depend on whether or not the gold actually clumps into something bigger than molecular form. You know, can gold recovery be less without bone ash cupel? I know there's a number of factors that can affect it. But
well, the things I know of that can affect it are if you don't have enough, if you don't have enough silver in there. If you have not done a silver ink for it, you are more likely to get gold balls.
Okay. Most of these are yellow beads when we're done. There's not a whole lot of silver in it. But once I get some numbers from the solutions, I'll have some reasonably good answers.
At least the guy has a good excuse.
Yeah, I know. It's just that he's busy and there were things happening and it happens. But I don't hold it against him. It's just really annoying.
You're just pouting.
That's right. I'm pouting loudly.
You're whining. With that wine.
No, I'm pretty full right now. Thank you. Benzene, I don't know. I have acetone on hand. So that's what I would try. See if it. No, don't have XRF around here that I can get to easily. Yes, and the kind of concentrations that we're getting into the resin, XRF could measure the gold reasonably. You know, it's now getting, in theory, the resins are supposed to be able to absorb gold up to 10%. Now, I've never even got close to that. I think we've gotten 4%, somewhere around there. But there's only so many binding sites, and there's a lot of other stuff that's sticking to the resin too. Therefore, um, yeah, it's a good test. I like the idea. Thank you for mentioning it. Um, so anyhow, the whole situation, we shall see. We also don't know for sure which resins work better and which works better in a. Uh, I did some with solution because I knew exactly what the solution was. Would make that. There was others where I was doing a resin in pulp, and the resin in pulp, I got significantly different results depending upon whether it was the Eco Goldex resin or the Max Water resin. So we shall see how that all turns out. Again, I know with a reasonable amount of accuracy how much gold is in the solids. In the case of the resin and pulp tests, I took the solids, pre-treated, 2 samples with hydrogen peroxide, 2 samples with OxyClean. Then I ran abundant Eco Goldex in both, and after 24 hours, I took a sample, then added the resins, and continued the roll for another 24 hours. So, if anything's working reasonably well, I should have gotten reasonably good adsorption onto the resin. We'll see. That particular test seemed to indicate that the Eco Goldex resin, by fire assaying the resin, got more than the Max Water resin. Okay. Yeah, you could, revaporize the solvents and condense them. You bet, honey bunny. That would also mitigate the fire hazard. Using gold as the collector metal? We're trying to collect the gold. Um, if you had sufficient gold in your sample, like these guys, uh, the gold line concentrates from the tables, yeah, they don't use a collector metal. Okay. Yeah, I understand, honey bunny. It's not a bad idea. We'll have to see first of all what happens. Does the stuff even dissolve, or is it? Yeah, it might be polystyrene, but it's a special kind of polystyrene. I don't know. But that's a good test. I'd like to try that. So, anyhow, all of these tests, the results are contingent on whatever the solution assays um, come out at. I don't know. Let's see. Fire assay fuel pump. So, testing my reagent needs. Again, I don't have the solution samples back yet. Using spot test and dip strips for the hydrogen peroxide and stuff. I'm guessing I can probably cut my hydrogen peroxide dosage in half and my Eco Goldex dosage in half, or maybe even 1/3. We'll simply see. Okay.
Oh, that's right. We have to put together an exact box.
Anyhow, another test that's running right now, which is a kind of a minor test, but important one, and certainly doesn't require any solution samples, is a resin attrition test. Now, depending upon the use, your resin may or may not be subjected to significant physical forces, as opposed to just chemistry. In the case of column adsorption, there's no real physical effect going on here. On the other hand, with a resin in pulp situation, there is a significant amount of potential abrasion. So, what I did was I took some of my tailings from all my bottle rolls here, which has very little gold left in it, theoretically. And I took some tailings, I took some water, and I took 20 grams of brand new Eco Gold X resin. The Eco Gold X resin doesn't physically look anywhere nearly as tough as the Max Water resin. Max Water resin is so tough that if you spill some on the floor, it's a tripping hazard because it acts as a lubricant. Little ball bearings. They're that hard and that round. Okay. So, just to double check, I took some of the Eco Gold X resin. And first thing I did was I screened it on a 60 mesh screen to see, is there a significant amount of undersize? Answer to the question, there was a little bit of dust, undersized sort of stuff, but not really significant. Okay, less than 1% of total. Okay. That dust, if it were to get in the leach circuit, is going to be a loss. It's just going to get away from you. So it's a total loss forever. Okay. But it's easy to pre-wash your resin. Not a big problem. Then I put the resin in the slurry, rolled it for 24 hours. We just got home, took it off the bottle roll, and it's sitting there ready for me to screen it and to wash the resin and weigh it. Now, one thing that I did do, I weighed 20 grams of resin from the factory, whatever condition it is from the factory. I've got these little 4-inch screens. Weighed it in that because I can put the screen on the scale. And then I just washed it in plain water, kind of tapped it drip dry, so to speak, put it back on the scale, and it had instantly gained 13 grams. It went from 20 grams even to 33 point something. I don't know what. Therefore, that's going to be more comparable to what I get at the end of the test after I wash it, away from the pulp. So, we'll see what that weighs. I don't know. I just haven't had time today. It's ready for me to do that final screening, washing, and weighing. But I'm checking to make sure, out of an abundance of caution, that this Eco Gold X supplied resin does not grind up in the bottle roll or the resin and pulp circuit. So that's an important thing. If it grinds up and turns to powder, yeah, then you're going to have some problem. I don't think there was even nearly that. I mean, I just rinsed it for 30 seconds. So I don't think it was hard water absorption. I think it was just water. There might have been some absorption. There was also just wetting, just surface wetting. I just want to know how much it should be. So anyhow, that's what I did there. In some of the tests, specifically the one where I used the Eco Gold X resin against the Max Water resin in a solution roll, where all there was solution, the Eco Gold X resin bead was definitely a nice bright yellow, and the Max Water resin bead was not. Max Water resin bead was silver in color.
It was larger.
And it was larger. So, my opinion, the Max Water is less selective than the Eco Goldex supplied resin. Also, Purolite has given us a couple of resin samples to test against our conditions to see if they work better than either of these two resins. We will see. I will let you know.
Senator Duckworth after fire. Yeah.
Weird. So I'm trying to find out what the reagent needs are, check the resin performance, and check the performance of the fire assaying procedure. Another thing that's going on here is I'm building a stripping circuit. Okay. And the stripping circuit I've described previously, basically a very large beaker on top of a magnetic stirring hot plate with an electrowinning cell that sits on top, and then it'll also have a peristaltic pump and a power supply. Finally got the parts I need to finish the electrolytic cell today, the carbon anodes, and I will be working tomorrow when I have time. I don't know with the fuel pump and stuff how much time, but I'll be finishing the parts because I couldn't do that until I knew how big the anodes were. It's hard to cut a groove to fit something when you don't have the thing to fit. So I'll get those done. With any luck, within a day or two, I will have a complete electrolytic cell ready for testing. I have the beaker. I have the magnetic stirring hot plate. I have the peristaltic pump. And I have the power supply. So, with any luck, the voice chops off with the mic too far away from the mic. Okay. You have to speak louder if you.
Well, Jean-Francois, I'm not technically trying to talk to y'all, but okay.
Anyhow, so I should have the stripping circuit ready for testing by Friday. I would think so. The only thing that's really going to take any time at all is the electrowinning cell. Everything else is pretty much plug and play stuff. How hard is it to put a beaker on top of a hot plate? You know? So, I say, I should have a video out on that in the not before next thing. I have plenty of loaded resin from our mill to test on the
eyelash bite.
Cool. Go down in the rainbow.
If I can find it.
But anyhow, it it is fairly straightforward. It's chemistry that I've used before. I am absolutely certain I'll be able to strip the resin. I'll be testing the functionality of the system and the capacity of the system. How much resin can I strip at a time? Currently, I'm dealing with a 5-liter beaker, although there's a 10-liter beaker on the way. And I say, we will see what the performance characteristics are. And go from there. We'll be using the acid thiourea stripping solution for the max water resin. The other stuff doesn't work worth a darn.
Beautiful. are.
Really? Bummer, Jean-Francois. Luckily, it's in a third world country where they never heard of OSHA. I wouldn't doubt it, although it's probably not a bad idea, too, for me to set all this up in a sterilite so that if there is say the beaker breaks, which could happen, um, then, you lose your hot plate. It gets submerged, but everything else is protected. So, um, we shall see. But I should have that thing set up by like Friday and running some test runs on it. So we shall see. What I'm probably going to have to do is, well, we'll see. Once you get the resin in the beaker and you start the stirring, it tends to form a layer with a fairly defined top to it. And so if I put X number of grams of resin in the beaker and start stirring and get good fluidization, I should be able to measure how much volume that takes and therefore extrapolate to see how big a beaker can do. That's one of the tests I need to do. Once the system has been tested, then this electrowinning cell is going to go down to Central America. The rest of the stuff is easy for them to just buy from Amazon, direct to there. It'll be a lot simpler. So we shall see. I say, assuming it all works, I'll probably make a duplicate cell in the near future to, because again, the closer my systems are to the ones that are being used in the field, the better. Yeah, Corningware would be fine. In this case, you could probably even use a like a cast iron pot, but I'm not aware of a Corningware stock pot, like a 10-quart stock pot. They may make it. I could certainly look. It's good stuff. The 10-liter beaker, I think, is about $70, although you can easily get them for $250.
Yeah, this picture was actually from North Carolina.
Eva's going to show you something here while I take a quick break.
I don't know if you'll be able to see it very well. But anyway, that, you may not be able to see the colors, but you're going to want to look up a rainbow water snake. They're actually, it's a rainbow mud snake. That's the belly. They actually are found in the southeast United States and in the southern Mississippi basin. That one was photographed in North Carolina. But they are so pretty. It's a rainbow snake photographed in North Carolina. And they eat salamander. Yeah, I haven't seen the Corningware ceramic pots personally. So, but we have all, I would love to get some decent Corningware, some more Corningware. I love Corningware. At any rate, that is where we are. He is coming back shortly. But yeah, I got some isopods and some springtails to keep Monty's substrate and his little environment nice and clean and nice and happy. The isopods eat poop and they eat dead. The springtail, and they also eat fungus. They eat, like, deadly things. Springtails eat essentially fungus and deadly things. I was shocked at how expensive they are. I was unaware that people actually keep these things as pets. And yes, Jean-Francois, I actually have some of the older Pyrex cookware that is borosilicate, which is really cool. So that was like, anyway, he's back. Yeah, for some bizarre reason, people isopods as pets. I don't.
Anyhow, the um, the research and development, that's pretty much where I'm at the present time, where I'm going in the immediate future. Once I get some assay results, I can start posting some conclusions. And once I get the the stripping circuit built, I'll go ahead and put some there. Only 9 people, huh? Oh well. So that's the situation so far. Does anyone have any questions or subjects they want to talk about at this point? Because that's about the news from here. And say, Eva's doing okay at this point. She'll see how it all goes in the long run.
We shall see what we shall saw.
Thank you for sending information, Jean-Francois.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for sending.
So, I say that's basically where we're at. We got a fuel pump to fix, and lots of analyses once I get the data. I'm not sure, honey bunny. Fairly close, I would think. Just hold up for the moment. But it's one of those deals where keeping pretty busy. That's for sure.
Excuse me.
And getting more information, but not as fast as I would like, because it just takes him a while to get me the solution assays back. Oh well, what happened. Also, I think Jared will be back in the not too distant future. Brandon is heading up there around the 1st of December. We're actually down there. What I'm hoping to do is get this stripping circuit ready to go, where it's working and everything, and then bring him, have him come up here. I'll show him how to do it and everything, and get him familiarized with it, and then he can just take the cell with him. No problem, honey. So that's kind of the plan. They're already putting together all the bits and pieces they should need down there to do this. Oh yeah. Yeah, I've got, see here. This is the small book. Okay, this is only smelting tests. Let's see, where are we at here? Okay. There we go. Last couple of weeks, see if I can do this. This is the information on these tests. Each page, about, 15 pages or something, is anywhere from 1 to 4 tests. Okay. The other lab notebook is about 3 times that much information. And again, each page is typically multiple tests. And with that notebook, each test typically takes about 24 hours. So I've been doing a lot in parallel and stuff like that. So once we get all this stuff fine tuned and in operation, then I'll be switching over to testing other leach solutions. You know, the thiosulfates and all this other stuff. I'll be going back to that. Right now, due to time constraints, I needed to get something that worked. So that's what I was focusing on, getting something that worked. And then once that's here, then I've got all winter to run tests. I'm pretty much going to be sitting around the house, you know, being close to Eva for the next 3 months. And I'll have plenty of stuff to do to keep me busy in the meantime. The only potential fly in the ointment I can see is we may have to move. It all depends on whether the property sells and whether the guy who buys it wants us to move immediately or whether he wants us to just go ahead and stay here until I'm ready to tear the trailer down, you know? So, anyhow, hopefully this information is useful to all of you folks out there. We're trying. And I say that's about it. You've been building barns. How many? There's the word barns plural there. How many do you need, honey bunny? You got a bunch of Amish friends?
Always assuming you can have enough farm.
No, I'm just wondering how many she needs. Uh, I've got the CLS manual, Michael. And I'll worry about that too with all the other stuff. Say once I get this working, we'll go ahead and start checking all the other stuff. Goats need room, huh?
Yeah.
Uh, that's the evil plan. Uh, I don't see any subjects popping up or any questions. But that's what we're doing. Well, I really want to find something besides the Eco Goldex also. That's good, honey bunny. Healing up pretty well from the surgery. He was doing okay from the surgery. We'll see how well the radiation does. But so far she's doing good. We'll see how it all works out. Uh, time is 7 roughly. Yeah, the hay I can certainly understand. Same thing about for the mining stuff. Yeah, that was something I found interesting too, Michael. You know, that they don't blend it anymore. It seems to me that they're much more laid back than they used to be. That's the concentrate leaching system from Action Mining. So, and they've got various formulas and such. I bought some. They sell the CLS 25. I used it according to the recipe. Didn't notice really good results, and it's been put on the back burner. Nothing has shown really good results except the Eco Gold X to date. I presume some of that is simply I'm just not using it properly for some reason. So, whatever. Um, but we'll be doing more research on that stuff once we get this whipped into shape, because all of the things that we're doing here will theoretically work with virtually any of the uh, leaching chemistries with appropriate modifications, such as what resin, what stripping solution, and such. We're getting basic equipment and knowledge at this point. So that's, none of this is wasted effort. Even if it turns out in the long run, we wind up doing something else. Also, in our particular stuff, the Eco Gold XS did not outperform the Eco Gold XO. Matter of fact, some tests it did not do as well. So I'm heavily leaning towards we'll just use the Eco Gold XO for this material. You know? Well, that's good, honey bunny. Yep, exactly, David. And. But not frustrating at this point because I got a lot of time to fill up. Oh. Okay, anything else anyone wants to talk about or bring up? Second call. Yeah, exactly. If we have something that works, let's go on and start making money and worry about something better later. You know, if a buck saw works and you don't have a chainsaw, start out with the buck saw. You know. Anyhow, it's been a long day, so I think we'll go ahead and call it quits. That's the update for this week. That's what's going on with everything. And oh, that's a good one, Bunny. And we'll update you next week, see how things work. So go ahead and post. Yeah, they work. They're not as fast as a chainsaw. Oh. Yeah, I think I'm gonna wait till tomorrow before I start trying to router out the slots for the anode. I want to get better lighting. Everybody, you take care. Happy prospecting and keep it safe out there.